Jai Hind everyone. I welcome you all again to this second session of Operations Management KMBN 205. So we are on unit number 2, and through this session I will be covering few of the very important topics of operations management. We'll be talking about basics of operations management, then we'll try to understand the difference between product and services as an output. We'll talk more about the features or unique characteristics of services that many a times poses challenges to service marketers as well, even to the operations management concern. Designing of service again is a challenge to understand how services can be designed. We'll talk more about classification of services. Then we'll discuss few dimensions of quality in services. And lastly, we'll try to understand service quality gap. So let me come to this very aspect of this session, a very core concept to understand operations management. Here on the slide, you can see the operations management is the administration of business practices to create the highest level of efficiency possible within an organization. So for a the business processes involved with planning, organizing, and monitoring the production process. It is concerned with converting raw materials and labors into goods and services in the most efficient manner possible. So in short, it aims to optimize the production and delivery process. So from small outfits to large commercial enterprises, businesses which lack the foundations of good operations management are likely to experiences the issues including meeting the targets, right? So then the product quality may suffer, the business may overspend, the waste may increase, then inefficiency may become embedded in internal processes. There may be difficulties even in delivering to customers on time, so ultimately the brand may suffer in the marketplace, right? So the operations management team attempts to balance a cost with revenue to achieve the highest net profit possible. So, to understand the service concept, because operations is majorly a part of service, or I would say it is more related to service sector. The service sector is a third of the three economic sectors, and this sector provides intangible goods, which we call as a services. There are few examples like financial services, management consultancy, telephony, and IT are good examples of service sector. There are few products with which services are attached. There could be few services which are purely in pure service nature. So the service sector industries are involved in providing services to business as well as to our final consumers. Even the growth of service sector in India is a unique example of a traditional models of economic growth. And within a very short span of 75 years since independence, the contribution of the service sector in India to the country's GDP is like a lion's share of over 60%. However, it still employs only 25% of labor force. And consequently, the agriculture, which is now kind of a stagnant, and manufacturing, which has not yet risen to its full potential, it continue to sustain the majority of our employed population. So this could be a unique challenge to future economic growth in India as well, and it requires out of the box solution, and will help rapidly harness the potential of service industry in India. So let me talk a few types of services. Like service sector can be broadly divided into two parts. It's like a business services, they could be a social services or a personal services. So banking, insurance, transportation, warehousing, it's all a part of your business services. Then education, health, administration is part of social services, whereas tourism, restaurant, recreational services are kind of a personal services. So service sector is linked directly or indirectly to everyone of for their livelihood. And I would say there is nothing like a service industry. Everything is a service. So service sector plays a very important role for the development of a country. Even India has invested a major portion of its GDP into the service sector, and service sector has become extremely important to grow not only our GDP as well as it make the key vehicle for employment generation as well. Government has also taken initiatives for providing access to government services. So it was actually said by Theodore Levitt, who was a well-known theorist. He was a well-known academician into. He's an author for many books into services. So he said that there are no such thing as a service industry. There are only industries whose service components are greater or less than those of other industries, and everybody is in a service. So whether it's manufacturing or it's a pure service, more or less it's somehow the services are attached to it. So let's understand what services are. So it is the part of a product or the full product for which the customer is willing to see value and pay for it. This is how we try to understand services in marketing context. Service is actually it's an action of doing something for someone or something. Service is an act or a performance that one party can offer to another, and that is essentially intangible in nature and does not result in an ownership of anything. So, this is one of the unique features that there is no transfer of ownership in case of a service marketing. Its production may or may not be tied to a physical product. This can be one thing. It is largely intangible in nature, means there is no material output out of this. A product is not tangible in case of a services, since you can't touch it. A service tends to be an experience only, that is consumed at the point where it is purchased and cannot be owned, since it perishes. So it is based on relationship and value. It may be used to market a service or a product. So here you can see a product service continuum. So let me take you to this very term. The goods and service continuum, actually this enables marketers to see the relative good service composition of a total product. I earlier said that there are few goods with which services are attached with. Like if you buy an automobile, so you go for installation services, you go for insurance services, even repairing services, even after sale services. So it is a pure product, but few services are attached with it. There are few services which are purely in intangible form, like education, consultancy, advisory services. These are pure services. There is no kind of a material or a tangible output is attached with it. There are few businesses, I would say, which are a combination of both. Like you see here in a continuum, in a product service continuum, between of this in between of these pure tangible goods and pure services, there is something lies in between. That is example here is in a restaurant, with which a product as well as services are attached with. Because you visit to a restaurant to take a prepared food, but that food is tangible in nature. But the services of preparing the food, serving the food, giving you ambience, all is a kind of a service. So restaurant is an example where you have a combination of both pure tangible goods as well as pure services. Here a few more examples to understand this product service continuum, as it make you more clear that here on the left hand side of this continuum or this arrow, you can see entertainment services, travel agencies, personal services, where the intangible component is more higher. So high service and low physical content. Whereas as we move through this arrow from left to right, you see a mix of tangible aspects like theme parks, airlines. These are again at the left hand of the of this axis or this arrow. You found cars, computer hardware. These are more tangible in nature. Then electric goods, computers, softwares. Then as we move from left to right, the high physical content is there and low service content like FMCG products. So this make you understand, or this help marketers to see the relative good service continuum of total products. So a product position on the continuum in turn enables marketers to spot the opportunities, as well as it make the marketers, even the people understand the composition of the goods and services. Now, coming to the another part of this session, that is how goods are different from services. So, while comparing goods and services on different bases, if I say on the basis of tangibility, so goods are more tangible in nature, whereas services are intangible in nature. And because of this, the resulting implication of intangibility of services, that services cannot be invented, services cannot be stored, services cannot be easily patented because it do not have any physical form. Services cannot be readily displayed or communicated as the physical products can be. Services are difficult to price because there is no component like cost of production in such a way, right? Then if I talk about standardization, goods are more standardized where services are heterogeneous in nature. So the resulting implication of heterogeneity of services may lead to service delivery and customer satisfaction very much depend upon employee and the customer action, because every time you avail a service, you found a different kind of an output even for the same customer by the same delivery person. Then production and consumption cannot be separated in case of a services, whereas in case of a goods, production can be separated from a consumption. And the resulting implication of this very feature of a service, that customers participate in and affect the transaction. Customer act as a co-creator in a service. So the two processes of production and consumption cannot be separated. Customer has to be present there while the services are being delivered. So customers, the presence of customer is something which is very essential part of this entire service delivery process. Even the other customers also affect this process, right? Like if, for example, if you visit to a doctor's clinic, so the presence of other customer, even if you visit to a bank, you're not a loan customer, you found other customer there, so many times those customer also affect the entire service delivery process. Even employees affect the service outcome. Decentralization may be essential in case of services because simultaneous production and consumption is required, and the mass production is difficult because services cannot be standardized. If I talk about the perishability, goods are more perishable in nature, whereas services are goods are non-perishable, where services are more perishable. So it is difficult to synchronize supply and demand with services because services cannot be returned and resold. So these are some of the differences, and with this we'll try to understand the unique features of a services or the characteristic of a services. So I'll take this one by one. These are the more these are the major four features of services. Other than that, there are many others. We'll talk in more detail. Right. So tangibility is one of the very feature of a service. Like services cannot be seen, cannot be smelled, cannot be handled, cannot be touched. There is no need for storage because services are difficult to conceptualize. Right. So this is little very difficult. Services are intangible, means it cannot be seen, tasted, felt, heard, or smelled. Evaluation is a challenge for a customer to evaluate before buying the services, right? Like in a decision making process, customer undergo a evaluation process, compare this. It is difficult because it cannot be seen before purchase. So intangibility is used in marketing to describe the inability to assess the value gained from engaging in an activity using any intangible evidence, right? So there are few implications like services cannot be invented, cannot be patented, it is not readily available. Here is an example like mobile network providers like Vodafone, Airtel, Reliance. These are few example where you can't see the service, you can't see the network, but just you can just avail the services. Another feature of a service is the variability. It is otherwise called heterogeneity as well. Services are highly variable. The state or a characteristic of variability means being a variable, right? Like a car service varies each time. Every time you take your car for a washing, it give a it varies each time. Even your gardener give a services, it varies every time. McDonald's consumables, the burgers, may be standardized, but the services given by the personnel on a weekdays, on a weekends may be different because of the rush hours and all. right? So there are certain implication we already have talked about, like service delivery and customer satisfaction very much depend upon employee and customer action. Service quality very much depends upon many uncontrollable factors. There is no sure knowledge that the service delivered matches the way it was planned and promoted. There may be a variability, there may be a mismatch between what was communicated or what was earlier planned and what it is and how it is delivered. Heterogeneity. Here is an example like concert, live concert, singing, dancing, comedy shows, movies. Every time it would not give the same output. Then, thirdly, inseparabilities that services are produced and consumed simultaneously. The provider client interaction is a special feature of service marketing. So, inseparability is a key quality of a service. You cannot separate, like a live theater, the performance and a makeover. You cannot separate the production of the services and the consumption of the services. So here are some implications like customers participate in and affect the transaction, customer affect each other, even employees affect the service outcome. Right. Here is an example of inseparability. Like taxi operator drives the taxi and the passenger uses it. So the presence of taxi driver is essential to provide the service as well as the customer as the presence of customer. Fourth one is the perishability, and it is used in marketing to describe the way in which the service capacity cannot be stored for sale in the future. Services can't be stored like a 100-meter race in the Olympics. You may have an experience after 4 years. So here are a few resulting implication of services being perishable, that it is difficult to synchronize supply and demand with services, and services cannot be returned and resold as in the case of the physical products. So other than these four major features of the services, there are many more features. Let me discuss. Then the ownership. So the sale of goods after the completion of process, the goods are transferred in the name of the buyer and he becomes the owner. But in case of a service, the user have only an access to the services. He cannot become a owner. They cannot own the service. Like you avail a service of Ola and Uber, application based taxis, but you cannot become an owner. You can avail a ride, but you cannot become an owner. Here is an example of ownership, like you become a member, you take a membership of a gym, but you cannot be an owner of the equipments. Simultaneously, like services cannot move through channels of distribution. So this is another feature, and this poses a challenge as well to the service marketers. So either user are bought to the service providers or the providers go to the user, right? It is right to say that services have limited geographical areas. Then labor intensity. Services usually involve considerable human activity rather than precisely determined processes. So human resource management is one of the important aspect, and there are few services which are, very much people dependent, like education, like hospitality, like your medical services, in which you just can't replace human efforts with the machines, right? Then another unique feature of a service is that there is a demand fluctuation. It can be difficult to forecast demand, which is also true for many goods, but it is very much for the demand for the services. So demand can vary by season, time, day, or business cycles. Right. Then buyer's involvement. In most of the service provision, it requires a high degree of interaction between client and a service. When in case of a physical goods, production of a physical goods, customer involvement is nowhere required. But in case of a service like consultancy services, medical service, so the presence of the patient who gonna take the treatment, the presence or the involvement of the patient is very much required, even in education as well. The involvement of a student is very much required to get a output in case of a service delivery process. Then inconsistency, like lawn care service cannot mow a lawn precisely the same way each time. I as a faculty cannot take a same level of lecture. It may vary depend upon uh, the situation. There may be some uncontrollable factors as well, right? But need to make the service as efficient and consistent as possible. So there are few remedies like use of technology to help make the service provider more consistent or to replace worker with the technology. These may be some ways. Then the close provider customer relationship is there in a service. Employee interpersonal skill are very important, because I'll take an example of like tourism service or hospitality services or medical services or education services, where the service is a people only. Customer may become loyal to a particular employee as opposed to the company. Right. So there are few additional characteristics of services other than what all we have discussed. Like services are sold exclusively on the basis of benefits they offer. Services cannot be made available in advance. Like in case of a product, you can, you know, because the products can be invented. Like physical goods can be invented, but services cannot be. But yes, there are some way out. Like you can take a prior appointments. Like time utility is a very critical. Once a service is lost, it is lost. Services cannot be transferred, resold, or it cannot be returned after, once it is consumed. So these are a few challenges of service. I give you a fast, a recap of this. Like defining and improving quality of a service is really a challenge for the service marketers. Ensuring the delivery of consistent quality, though marketer try to make a consistent, effort in output. The designing and testing the service again is a challenge because services cannot be, invented. It is intangible in nature. So communicating and maintaining a consistent image is again a challenge. Accommodating fluctuating demand, matching the capacity and the demand, because in services like medical service, which are highly unpredictable in nature, right? You cannot estimate how much accident cases you're gonna have today, how many heart attacks you're gonna have today. So this is very difficult to forecast. Motivating and sustaining employee commitment, because there are services which are very much people based. Then coordinating marketing operations and human resource efforts. Setting the price again is a challenge for service marketers. Finding a balance between standardization versus customization. There are few services which need to be standardized. There are few services which needs to be customized. Right now, coming to a classification, I give you fast, a thorough mapping of how services can be classified. So there are different types of services. Firstly, based upon, let's say, on tangibility. So you have rental goods, own goods, and non goods, like college education, where there is no physical goods attached to it. Through a rental goods, if I say you have a, cabs, car, hotel rooms, own goods like TV repairs, then your services can be classified based upon skills. So there can be different types of services, like I would say professional services or non-professional services. So legal services, advisory services, medical services, these are all professional services where, you know an expertise is required. Whereas non-professional, like security services, there is no degree or no qualification is required. These are considered as non-professional services. Based upon the goals, they could be the profit, uh, you know, uh, organization. They could be non-profit organizations. So insurance, banking are the type of a service which came under profit organizations, whereas non-profit, libraries, Indian Postal, these are services, but it is under government, it is non-profit and non-commercial. Based upon regulation, services can be highly regulated, limited regulation, or with no regulation. So house painting is a type of a service which require no such kind of a regulation. Limited regulation with the fast food services, right? And hospital or medical services or education services, where there are some regulatory authorities above them, like you have universities, you have AICT, or you have, above hospital, you have many other authorities to have a control on. Then based upon labor intensiveness, you have equipment based services and people based services. People based services can be like skill, where you require skilled labor, unskilled labor, appliance repair, or professionals. Right, equipment where you have an automated vending machines, where you have unskilled operators like movie theater or dry cleaners. Right, moving further, we have more classification to see, like a relationship with the customer. So there are some services in which membership is required, like you have you take a college enrollment. You have a formal, you have a membership like banks. You have an account in a bank. Informal, like you do not have any kind of a membership or a formal, watching a TV, watching a movie. An ongoing relationship with the customer, like restroom or barber, you repeatedly visit there, but there is no such kind of a membership. Then another classification of service based upon demand and supply. So there could be a steady demand like in a college. There could be a fluctuating demand like in hospitals. There can be a seasonal demand like in a hotels. Then customer employee presence. There could be few services where there is no presence of employee, like self service like ATM. There could be interpersonal services like schools. There could be remote services where the services can be availed sitting away from each other, like remote service and insurance services. Then customer contact. There could be high contact services or low contact services. So university, college, where customer need to visit there, a high level of interaction need to be there. Automated car wash is a low level of customer contact is required. If I say based upon place and time, customer site, there could be services which can be delivered to the customer side, like pizza delivery. There could be some services for which customer need to present or visit to the service site, like hair salon. And there could be some third channel or a platform where services can be available, like physical channel, electronic channels. Customization. So based upon customization, services can be highly customized or services can be standardized. So taxi services, haircut, tailoring, these are customized services. Standardized services, like you have a fixed bus route, a flight route, or a railways route. Right? So these are all the types of services which all we have discussed here. So this is all about this session today. I hope I am able to make you understand the differences between the physical goods and the services. Why this aspect need to be understood? Because before designing of a service, before understanding the operations, we need to understand what the difference between the physical goods and the intangible services. So thank you very much. See you again with unit number 3.